Up and Adam, everybody, and thank you for joining us right here on Wake Up Worcester on Charter TV3. Later on in this half hour, City Councilor Connie Lukes will be stopping by. We'll be talking about this controversy over the billboards on 290. They want to have some billboards that are going to be so bright that I guess that we will have to wear shades. We just won't be able to ignore them, and the fear is that we'll start running into the back end of the car in front of us. So we'll be talking with Councilor Lukes about that, should they be banned. Right now, though, 8.8 magnitude quake in Chile, and Professor Paul Posner from Clark University here with us, expert on Chile. This is not the first time, I understand, Professor, and thank you for being here, that Chile has been hit by an earthquake.
Chile has a long history of earthquakes. It's right on the South American fault line, so this is not uncommon and certainly wasn't entirely unexpected. People have been educated as to what to do in earthquakes like this.
Tell us a little bit about the structure of Chile. I mean, many of us probably don't know exactly how it's set up or what it's like politically. I was watching our Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton, arrive the other day delivering some satellite phones. But what kind of, I mean, what's the form of government? What's the internal politics like?
Very good questions. Chile is a democracy. It's been a democracy in its present form since 1990. Before that, there was a dictatorship from 1973 until 1990. And prior to that, it was a democracy and actually was one of the longest standing democracies in Latin America. So the military coup that took place in 1973 was an exception in Chile's history. The Chileans take a great deal of pride in their democratic legacy, and since 1990, the government has performed very well, very stable, both politically and economically. So in that regard, Chile is doing quite well by Latin American standards. And it's considered sort of a middle-income country.
Right. I was going to say, now, this economic stability, this middle-income country, how does that help them, if it does at all, when they've just been hit by this 8.8 magnitude earthquake?
Well, we have the example of Haiti to compare the Chilean case to, and obviously the situations are very, very different. With the earthquake in Haiti, which was not nearly as strong as the Chilean quake, much more loss of life and damage to property. That just reflects the fact that Chile is a more developed country, and also economically, I think the country is in much better shape to deal with the damage and repairing the property, rebuilding. They have probably $20 to $30 billion in reserves that they've been sort of sheltering for purposes like this. So they have wise economic policy in that regard, and so I think they will come out of this in much better shape than the folks in Haiti will, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, but that probably is why the world has reacted in such different ways. I mean, we are not having a concert, for example, this Friday with lots of stars who are going to be doing a concert for Chile. And I think, some people may, wonder why. We may have an extra envelope at the church service for Chile, but not the kind of outpouring that we saw for Haiti.
Yes, and unfortunately that's sort of the downside to what's happened, because relatively speaking, Chile is in a much better situation than Haiti. The bulk of the international aid is going to go to Haiti, and I think that is as it should be. On the other hand, though, I should emphasize that there are a lot of poor people in Chile. While Chile is relatively well off in terms of a developing country, there's still a great deal of poverty, and there's still a great deal of inequality. And unfortunately, I think it's those people at the bottom who are going to suffer the most. They're the ones who are the most vulnerable in terms of their housing structure, in terms of their capacity to make it through because they don't have the resources, whether it be to buy food, to take care of their medical bills and so forth. So that really sort of raises the issue as to whether or not Chile has done as good of a job as it could have in terms of addressing the needs of those people who are at the bottom of the socioeconomic ladder.
I think here in the United States also we probably tend to lump all of the South American, not you, but my ignorance, we probably tend to lump all the South American countries in together. That's why it's fascinating to hear a little bit about Chile today. Obviously, I mean, they have carved out their own place. As you talk about some of these inequalities, those would be the people who would be hit the hardest. Is there a way in which the government will be able to respond to them? Always struck by the pictures on CNN or other news outlets of someone who is just sitting there pleading into the camera, can't somebody come and help me?
Right. A lot of interesting things happening with regard to that issue. I mean, first we have the issue of the fact that, I mean, many of the images have shown structures that have been, intact. In other cases, structures that have collapsed, but those have been more the exception as compared with what we saw in Haiti. At least major buildings, right? But the poor people don't live in those buildings. They live in shanty towns. They live in shacks, and those probably we haven't seen too many images of those, but I'm sure that, particularly in the South, Concepcion and Constitucion and the other cities that were hit the hardest, that many of those folks have lost their homes, and the question is, how will the government respond? And the interesting thing here is that the government is ready to change, that we have a new president taking charge March 11th, and he is on the right wing of the political spectrum, so he has a particular philosophy about how these kinds of issues should be addressed, and it is through the marketplace primarily. So the question will be, well, how well will government incentives to have the market address the needs of those people who've been hurt the most, how well will that work? That's the big question.
Yeah, interesting. Professor, let's pick it up there in just a moment as we continue right here on Wake Up Worcester.